Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I'd like to talk about this important topic. So a couple of people have left some questions in my comment section asking, how come there's so many single mothers in the Philippines? Now this is a complex issue in the country. According to a 2020 survey by the World Health Organization, the Philippines has around 15 million single parents, of whom 95% are women, totaling to more than 14 million single mothers in the country. So with that statistics, you can see that, yes, it is true, there's a lot of single mothers in the Philippines. Now, there are many factors contributing to the increasing number of single mothers in the Philippines. Today, we'll discuss them one by one. Now, before I start, I'd like to add a quick disclaimer. All of the information I'm about to share are based on my personal opinion, coming from my personal observations and research. I know that some people will not agree with everything that I'm about to say. I understand that and I respect that. In this channel, in this platform, we can agree to disagree. All right, let's start with the first factor. And I think this one has a big impact when it comes to the increasing number of single motherhood, not just in the Philippines, even here, especially here in the US. All right, I'm talking about this movement that emerged here in the West, particularly the US, back in the 1960s and the 1970s. And when it comes to cultural changes, you will notice that the Philippines is a little bit behind. But you will also notice that the Philippines is definitely quickly catching up with the West. I'm talking about the movement of sexual liberation. Some people also call it sexual revolution. There is a correlation when it comes to sexual liberation and single motherhood. This is very apparent in the Philippines. There's definitely a significant change when it comes to how Filipinos live their lives. You know, back in the days, Filipinos are very conservative, very traditional, not just with their values and beliefs, but that's how they really live their lives. There are clear traditional norms and codes of behavior related to sexuality and interpersonal relationships. You know, growing up, I remember there's a lot of value and importance put into chastity and keeping yourself pure before marriage. That was the cultural norms. But that is not the case anymore. Sexual liberation encouraged people to have more premarital sex, particularly the women. Today, most Filipinas are sexually active outside of marriage. Now, I found this data here, but to be very honest, you don't even really need a data to prove this point. You will see this happening everywhere in our society today. But I'll go ahead and share this data. It's a little bit older, but I'll go ahead and read it. Premarital sexual activity is increasing in the Philippines among all young adults aged 15 to 24. Premarital sexual activity increased from 18% in 1994 to 23% in 2002. From 26% to 31% among young men and 10% from 10% to 16% among young women. So with social media today, you can only imagine how much that number has increased. All right, with sexual liberation, that movement, it also advocated not just for wider acceptance of sexual expression, but also contraception. And that is the big difference. When sexual liberation happened here in the US, there is also that promotion when it comes to the use of birth control. Now, that didn't happen in the Philippines because despite the sexual liberation, the Philippines remains to be a very Catholic country, with its population being 78% Catholic. So you would notice that the opposition to the use of contraception runs deep in the Filipino culture because, again, majority of Filipinos still abide by the doctrines of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church strongly opposes contraception. Under its doctrines, only natural family planning is acceptable. What does that mean? So natural family planning is basically the calendar method. Some people also call it the periodic abstinence, basically abstaining from sex during those times of the month where the woman is most likely to get pregnant. Now, is that effective? Now, most people say that is not effective at all, but what's very effective, and we all know this, when it comes to preventing pregnancy is abstinence. Now, you can't really stop people from having sex because after all, that is a personal choice. So that's what's happening in the country. You have a lot of premarital sexual activity. At the same time, a lot of these people are not using any form of birth control. So a lot of times this activity do end up in unplanned pregnancy. And with sexual liberation, you would notice that more and more younger people are engaging in this activity. And these kids are not ready for that kind of responsibility. So when unplanned pregnancy happened, a lot of times you will also notice a lot of abandonment. So when the girl gets pregnant, the boy bails out. So it is a sad cycle of, this factor has greatly contributed to the increasing number of single motherhood in the Philippines. Now, with this kind of culture, you would also see a significant change when it comes to the traditional Filipino family structure. That is slowly disappearing, and that is a sad reality in the Philippines. That concept of a nuclear family where you have a father, a mother, and their children living under one roof. That used to be the norm. That's not the case anymore. Nowadays, with that cultural shift, you would notice a rise when it comes to non-traditional relationships and family settings. So to explain that a little bit more, back in the days, most Filipinos got married first before, having children. Again, that is the cultural norm back in the days. That's not the case anymore. Nowadays, a lot of young people choose to cohabitate, and cohabitation has become widely accepted in the culture. And with cohabitating couples, you would notice that a lot of times these relationships do end up in separation because there's less legal and social pressure to stay together. And this situation often leads to single parent households. Now, another factor that has a great impact when it comes to the increasing number of single motherhood in the Philippines is this phenomenon of migration and overseas Filipino workers. Now, I mentioned this in one of my videos before. I can't remember which one exactly, but in the Philippines, because of the economic hardships, a lot of times married couples do end up living separately. Usually one person has to work abroad to support the family. And when couples go through this situation, they face a lot of challenges. A lot of times there's a lot of temptation and infidelity happening in the marriage. And in the Philippines, there's no divorce. So a lot of times when married couples separate, they do end up cohabitating with their new partners. In this situation, you will see that the biggest victims really are the children. So with this family type of settings, you can see that there is also a rise when it comes to teenage pregnancies. A lot of children, daughters growing up without a father figure and unguided. So you will see that more and more, younger and younger as well, girls becoming pregnant. And again, with that situation, these kids are not ready for that kind of responsibility. So unplanned pregnancy happens and abandonment also happens. Now, abandonment also happens in married couples, where again, they do end up separating. A lot of times not all the times, but there are situations when one person working abroad finding someone else while working abroad, and they do end up abandoning their spouses and the children. So that is a sad reality in the Philippines, and it has greatly contributed to the increasing number of single motherhood in the country. Now let's talk about the last one. This is personal choice. Now, even in situations where you have a good environment provided to the children, you have both parents in the household, you've got the discipline and the guidance provided to the kids. And I'm talking specifically on teenage pregnancies. It still happens in some families, even when it comes to traditional conservative religious families. It still happens because even if you have that good environment inside of the home, as soon as that child goes out, it is a very different culture outside of the home. And with social media nowadays, it's becoming harder and harder for these young kids to make the right choice, because at the end of the day, it will all come down to personal choice. And we have free will. So some of these kids, as early as 12, they will have to make a decision, because again, the influence is strong. The Philippines has become very westernized, and that is a reality in the country. Now, is there a solution to this complex issue? Now, there's so many suggestions on this. A lot of younger generation Filipinos would say, let's provide sex education in public schools. Let's go ahead and get rid of all of the barriers when it comes to access to birth control. In fact, let's go ahead and provide free birth control to the public. That should solve the issue. Now, if you think those are the solutions to this issue, let's take a look at what's going on here in the US. Because here in the US, you have sex education in public schools as early as 6th grade. You have no barriers when it comes to access to birth control. In fact, some places do provide free birth control to the public. But what's interesting is that single motherhood is also a growing trend here in the US. According to the census data on single moms here in the US, there were 15.6 million single mother-headed households in the US in 2019. This is 3 times the number in 1960. So do you remember when sexual liberation started? It started in that era, 1960s, 1970s. And you will see that there is a correlation when it comes to single motherhood and that movement. It doesn't really matter where it is, whether it is the Philippines, the US. If you think those are the solution, you would soon realize that those are just band-aid. You know, the classic example of treating the symptoms but not the disease. I believe the solution is available right there in the Word of God, the Holy Bible. Turning away from God and ignoring His laws will bring serious and big consequences, which include increasing social chaos and eventual sudden destruction. Whether you believe in a higher power or not, the concept of turning away from divine guidance carries implications that extend beyond the individual. It touches upon morality, society, and our understanding of existence. So God created marriage for a reason. You know, it is a security not just for the man and the woman, but most importantly, the children. And that is supposed to be a lifetime commitment. But nowadays, people are choosing the alternative. And that's what you see, social chaos. Another thing, when it comes to sex, God created sex, again, for a greater purpose. A lot of times nowadays people think it's just some activity, it's just for fun, you know. They can do it whenever they want, with whomever they want. And you will see a very big difference when it comes to how people view sexuality. You know, nowadays people are very proud of telling everybody how much body count they have. I mean, it is a very different culture. And with that kind of mindset, you will see a decay into the society. And that's what's happening in our society. It doesn't matter where it is, the US, the Philippines, you will see. And here in the US, you even have more problems that we can talk about in my next video. Okay, ultimately, the choice is ours. We can either, you know, embrace the Word of God, embrace that guidance, or reject His Word. All right, I'm gonna leave this video here. I hope you guys learn something from the video. If you have any comments, you are free to add that in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in my next one. See you guys. Bye.